Now I'm up here flipping battery tenders. It's 14 degrees early in the morning. I get up super early. I got a lot of things to do today. The kids are putting some flooring in their house. I have to go to Home Depot. Karen has an errand list, but I probably still will have a couple hours to do some work. But here's the good news. I'll be inside, not out here where this is the tundra out here. Now, of course, if you live where it's nice and warm all year long, you have no idea about how good coffee tastes, believe me. But then you probably know how good something cold tastes. The whole point is here, for us in this part of the country, this time of year, it's time to restore motorcycles. And every one of these restorations has helped me get through the winter that normally if I didn't, I don't know if I would have made it through the winter. Or what would have happened. But I do know this is a part of my life that I really enjoy. I actually look forward to it. But I also look forward to the spring coming. And I know the spring is coming. And this baby right here is going to look like, I don't know, like I hope, like my vision is, not like it looks right now. 11 years old, it's going to look brand new, or maybe even a little better. You can see the hole in the ice, where the ice, you can see the fish, they look like they're just frozen in time. That's the beauty of a pond. We don't have to feed them now till about May. I wish I didn't eat till May. Maybe I would have lost some weight. In what used to be our beautiful Karen's garden, not going through the circle of life here. But we're not going to obviously be able to paint or do much outside at 14 degrees this morning. And this cup of coffee is for everybody who lives in a cold weather climate and restores motorcycles. I don't know if you can see the birds this morning. They're not at the feeder, they're in this bush. This is, I guess, where they get their little sanctuary in the winter. But every morning I go through my ritual. I fill up this feeder, and at some point in time they come out and keep me company. Now in the last couple of days we got some of the parts buffed. There are still quite a few left to buff. We had a nice visit from Turbo Steve the other day. We got our windshield cut and clipped and polished and edged. An awful lot of stuff left to do on the table here. Before I start bringing in, here's my motive, before I start bringing in the big fairing parts, and that's going to be a very overwhelming job. I wanted to try, my goal is in the next day or two, is get all of this paint. This paint is plenty hard right now, and I can work on getting all of it buffed out. The part I've got buffed is absolutely perfect. The carbon is perfect. The paint is perfect. So I wanted to set a little goal here, not a realistic goal, maybe a little unrealistic. I wanted to have everything on the table finished. Then I can move that over to the table that I don't really use every day, because I'm going to need this table for doing the big fairing parts and the gas tank, which would be the next, hopefully get that done in the sequence, I hope. But you never know. Things change on a daily basis here. So as we try to do with each buffing project, I start off with INDASA 2000 grit, some soapy water, and try to get the part block sanded flat. Always the first step. I wanted to show this up close and personal here. You can see this part, for whatever reason, whether we put it into the garage, it had picked up a lot of little dust. The wind might have been blowing that day. And this is something that's very common. Even though we don't have any orange peel, we have a lot of dust in the paint. But to block sand this whole part out flat, maybe a little more time consuming than normal, because we want to get all of this out before I move on to any buffing at all. Now there's one thing very convenient about having the parts dried like this and they're ready to buff, because I can start and stop this like a light switch. If Karen calls down and says, oh, the certain thing, the house is on fire or whatever, smoke alarms are going off, or we got to go pick the baby up, which is very common. What happens is I'm able to just leave this stuff here and shut the lights off and go do something else. Well, for a day like today, that's good, because I have to do a Home Depot trip. The kids are putting flooring in their house. I don't know where that's going to wind up going. I'm probably going to wind up doing some of it. I'm going to do all of it, in fact. That's what's going to happen. But it's all beside the point. I don't mind doing it, of course. The thing is, when you're painting, and a compressor's running and you're trying to use up that best 1 hour of the day, and maybe a day of sunlight, or oh my God, it's going to rain in another hour. You know, this is not that kind of thing. This is relaxing. You come down, you can work at your own pace. You can watch, I'm watching TV right now. I'm watching myself do something on TV. And it's relaxing, and that, because I'm a workaholic, that's what I like to do, is I like to have little diversions from reality. Buffing paint, a very satisfying thing because you see the result right away. You don't have to wait till spring to see the result. Now to show this, look at how there's still some high spots here. So these are the little imperfections. I have to keep sanding and sanding and sanding. And I wanted to do one of these in real time. Don't have to do them all, of course. But when you know you can prep and you can get a part done like this. Now see, right now, if I see I have any little spots, I will work on them. And I'm not going to do it as if, well, I'm looking at my watch and 5 minutes later I have to be done. I'd rather do less parts and have them perfect, because the truth is we still have a whole lot of winter left here. More than I like to admit sometimes. Now let's just see how long. I like to change the rotation of the sandpaper. I always like to do one in real time because there's always a new subscriber. I've never had a day go by I don't have at least one new subscriber. I think we got a little over 6,500 right now, 6,400. Anyway, okay, now it's down to, and this is a good thing I can show this in real life. Now I've got it down to, it is just a tiny, well, you know what? I'm a fussy guy, and I don't want to have any. Now, I'm sure a lot of people, and I never criticize people that don't enjoy having this level of finish, because there's a commitment to having this level of finish. It takes time, it takes energy, but the neat thing is once you're done, assuming you don't sell a bike, and I never sell bikes, you've got it for the rest of your life. It's in the bank, it's there. Every time you wax the bike, clean it, polish it, or somebody looks at it, it's there. It's forever. There we are. Now we've arrived. Now, the rest of this, of course, I got to do around here by hand, and I'll be very, very careful. But the whole part has to look like this before we move on. Now, there's always the part around the edges and all these little spots up here. Now, all this is hidden in here, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time or energy trying to buff out parts that you don't see. The logic is you spend more time on the parts that you do see. And if you don't see, like the bottom of the gas tank that you don't see, well, I'm not going to really worry about that. But the parts that I see, like the edge of the fender here, I would like these to be perfect. And in between, we know I got to replace these blind nuts here, so I haven't forgotten that. But all of these little edges and corners, it's all just hand labor. Now for the buffing part of this, our good old-fashioned 4CR, and we need to renew this pretty soon. I see we're down to the last little bit, which means one of my favorite things, a trip to Gavin's with my credit card. Now we've got the whole part flat sanded. The buffing part of this should be relatively easy. When you compromise the sanding part, it means you spend a lot more time buffing. So I'll try to do one little one in real time and we'll move right on. So what I wanted to do is do one piece of this in real time. So all we need to do is show roughly what amount of time it takes to bring this part up. The paint's plenty old. This paint's way over a week old, so it should be perfect. Now you notice I'm saving the two big lower fairing parts right for the last part of this, well, the next couple days anyway. They have dried the longest, and I want them to be the easiest to buff because they're the most labor intensive. It's funny, I never get tired of using these little Harbor Freight buffers. They do such a good job for such a little amount of money, it's just unbelievable. And that 4CR product, since we've finalized using that on all our parts, the buffing part of this job, especially because it's black, anything black has got to be perfect. That's I don't even have to wipe this even. I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. And that's in real time. And now it's just a question of getting the rest of this buffed out. I don't think that's going to take too long at all. That paint came right up this morning. It's very satisfying when you start with a day with paint with all kind of dust and drivel in it, and a couple hours later you have something that looks like it came from the Rolex watch factory, or the Bentley, in this case the Bentley factory. Now there's always some parts of this that are easy to do using your knee for a buffing table, I guess is the right word. And then the final thing, we just have to, any spot that the buffer doesn't go to completely conveniently, we do it by hand. And one by one, these parts gotta get it put on the rack, ready to put back on the bike when it comes time to assemble it. And there's always those little spots that you can't get with the buffer. And there's a certain amount of it you just have to do by hand. And even though some of these are not going to be really obvious spots, I'm just committed to that. I want this paint to be as perfect as I can make it. And there's a price to be paid. And a lot of times when you don't have it, it's because you don't want to pay the price. Well, I just couldn't be happier the way that worked out. That's really going to add a nice little touch to the bike. And every little part you do just makes it that much nicer. Now he happily takes his place on the workbench of parts that are done. And we still have some parts to go, of course, but right now it's the best part of the day. It's errand day. It's errands off to Home Depot. One of my favorite things on the way to Home Depot is checking out these giant Christmas ornaments. Very, very cool. Now what in God's name could be more fun than coming to Home Depot on a day when it's freezing cold outside? It actually is up over 20 degrees. I love coming to Home Depot. Reminds me of the days I renovated houses. Now, in my lifetime, I renovated 3 houses with the help of John DeTavio on George Venturini, and we lived at Home Depot. I don't miss it. Well, we're looking at flooring for the kids. I'm not sure they want one of these floating floors in their bathroom and by their fireplace. I'm not sure about these. See, I haven't done this in so many years. Well, we do some little research here. Now another thing I need is some metric stuff. There's a couple of rusty bolts I need to replace. This is pretty funny. I'm used to buying bolts at Bolt Depot. They're about 8 cents a piece. Here they're $2 for 2. It's hard not to like Home Depot. Or Lowe's or any of these, but I love Harbor Freight the best. Boy, it's always good to be home from Home Depot. We are ready to go back to work. But first, a cup of coffee. What could be better? What could be better? Ho, 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 ho. See, while I make coffee, she has her... What are we having today? Hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate and Home Depot. What a combo. Holy mackerel. Now, we're back from a wonderful trip to Home Depot, my favorite place. We've been coffeeed up. We're ready to go. And this part... ready to buff. So I don't know how much more time we have left in the day, because one of the things I was supposed to do today, it didn't work out so far. We're supposed to make a decision on what kind of flooring we're going to put in the bathroom of Stacy's house. And I did some homework, but I'm not sure what I don't get to pick is what I'm saying. So anyway, I haven't done flooring in a long time, so it should be a real challenge. But I did work with an expert over my lifetime. John DeTavio was a real craftsman when it came to putting rugs and flooring and linoleum and tile in. And he actually did the garage. One of the last jobs he did before he passed away was carpet my garage. So anyway, not to belabor the point here, this part you almost can't use a block. It's almost all corners, angles, edges, and whatever. But we are definitely going to get at least one more part done today while we have the opportunity. Because my goal here is to get everything buffed that's on the table before I pull in that big fairing. That big fairing is going to be a major job. I want to have plenty of room, and I don't want to even be tempted to rush it. So a part like this, it's really hard. You got to get in here and in here. You almost have to do the whole part by hand, realistically. Now, as I'm finishing sanding up this part, I wanted to just remind people that maybe I haven't said this in a while. It's worth noting. At the end of this project, or near the end of the project, I'm going to take an inventory of what bolts I need. It reminded me, being at Home Depot today, reminded me that the bolts there are 2 for $3 and or whatever. And the bolts that I need from Bolt Depot are significantly less. They ship them, and you just 2 days later they're at your door. But I want to get for this project, and I have that frozen bolt, not in this part, in the other one, in the fender. I'm going to try to get as much of the hardware brand new and stainless steel as possible, so we never have that issue again. The bolts never rust. Once they're polished forever. And they're very inexpensive from Bolt Depot. That's where I bought all the bolts for the FCR project. And it's a joy to go back and polish the bike and not see any rusty bolts. Boy, that's really nice. Okay, we're ready for the same buffing technology that we used on the first part. And a lot of this just gets redundant, but you know what? What's nice about it is you see results very quickly. I just always make sure that that paint is hard enough to buff, and it is. Okay, there's always little spots like this that you really can't get a buffing wheel in there. And so I don't even try, because a lot of times when you try to push it in there, you wind up making more of a problem than you solve. But again, the 4CR product, it buffs out beautifully by hand. If the buffer were to break, well, it wouldn't matter. I got about 15 of them. But if I had to do the whole part by hand, yeah, it would take longer, and I'd have bigger muscles and whatever. And I'm not sure who would be impressed, but I buffed out at least 100 stunt planes that have as much square area as a typical sport bike by hand without ever even owning a buffer. So you can do it, but you've got to be, this is the thing. This part here takes a long time, because you've got to be fussy and get your fingernail down in all the corners where these ridges are. But when you're done, boy, it's the kind of thing you look at and you go, whoa. Well, that finish, I'm real happy the way that played out. We got all the little edges and details, and that should really add a nice little, one more nice part to a bike that I hope is going to be as close to perfect as I can make it when it's done. So as I do the perp walk at the end of the day, I look at all the parts. There's still a few little ones left to buff, and of course the 2 big ones. But we have had anytime I can have a good day like this, on a day that I don't have to be outside in that freezing cold, and I can drink a lot of coffee, and it makes my day complete. Any day we can put another part, when today we actually put two of them, in the bank here. In the bank, I'm already starting to worry about those two big parts. The two big fairing parts, I'll try to do those in the next couple days, but again, we try to plan around so many things in this house that the schedule changes every 15 minutes. But anyway, I always think if I can get a couple hours in every day in the shop and get some family stuff done and drink a lot of coffee and maybe even eat some of those pepperoni strombolis, then I always think life is good. I hope your life is good too. And thanks for watching.